Au revoir. All right, we're rolling. Welcome to another episode of FitPet Boston Talks. My name is Leah Lodato, and I am the host of the show. And today, I am joined by Jen Banks. Hello, Jen.
Hey, how are you?
I'm very good, and I'm much better now that we're sitting here finally.
Yeah, thank you so much for coming out here. This is super cool.
Yeah, I'm excited to be in nature. The drive out here, I was like, oh my word, wide open spaces, roads, farms. I feel like I'm at home.
Yeah, you feel like you're in the middle of nowhere, but Worcester is like 15 minutes that way.
Yes.
So pretty cool.
Yes, in the shadow of Mount Wachusett.
Yeah,
Yep.
yeah, exactly.
Grew up trying to ski out here unsuccessfully, but
you can see it from the backyard. You can actually
gorgeous.
Yeah, it's a good spot.
Gorgeous. If you're new to the podcast, thank you for your listening ear. Again, my name is Leah Lodato, and I try to interview Boston area dog handling professionals. We sit down and talk about our lives, dogs, and careers, and I'd like to think that we have a nice little network of trainers, handlers that have joined me for the podcast. And when I am not doing that with somebody like Jen, my wife, Laurie, and I will tackle a variety of different issues, all related to dogs and canines, and sometimes we will just talk because we have stuff to say. So if you've tuned in, you can listen to us tackle a specific issue or a question and if you have any questions to ask us, you can always email me, leah@fitpetboston.com. And one other thing that I rarely mention on the podcast anymore, but I need to. If you'd like to support the podcast, you can go to bettervet.com if you're looking for a vet and use the code FPB75, save $75 on your first visit. And I will always put that information in the show notes. So check it out if you're looking for a vet, mobile veterinary service. And the few folks that have used the service have been pretty happy with it. So I'm confident that they do a good job, though I don't use BetterVet. I would if I didn't have an awesome vet. There I go. All right, Jen, again, thank you so much.
Yeah, no, thanks for having me.
And we are sitting here with Miss Moonpie.
Yeah.
And it's also, I'm sorry, I said her name.
She knows
I should
her
have said it.
name.
I should have said it quieter. And today is her birthday. Happy birthday.
Happy birthday, Moonpie.
And I wanted to start off today by talking about the AKC competition that you recently did, because when Laurie was coming back from the competition, I was asking her, did you see Jen there? And she said, oh, I don't know who Jen is. I'm like, she has staffies. She's like, oh my God, I want to kidnap those dogs. And she was like, I know exactly who Jen is. Yeah. So you had a really successful competition. Can you just talk a little bit about it and, who you trialed and what you achieved or maybe didn't achieve?
Yeah, no, we'll talk about both. Sure. Yeah. So I had Moonpie, who's my 6-year-old Stafford. And then I had Rue, who's her daughter, who's almost 3. So Moon and I have been working in open obedience this year. She got her CD in 2019. I think she got it in 2019. And then everything shut down. So we're kind of getting back into it all. And then Rue has been doing some rally, which is brand new to her. We just started doing like healing and formal obedience this year. I'm a little late to the game there. So on Friday, it was a double trial in one day. So each dog got to go in the morning and again in the afternoon. And when you have a novice dog and a not novice dog,
you're running around.
means you're there the whole day. Because Moon was the very first class and Rue was the very last class. So we were there like 7 a.m. to 6 p.m. or something ridiculous like that. So we got there and Moon's been having a broad jump issue. And coupled with minor injuries, it's made training really hard. So she was the first run of the day, 8:30 in the morning. It's a big deal for me to do these trials. I use my precious babysitting time to like go out there and get this done. And we get into the ring and she looked, can I swear?
Sure.
She looked like shit.
Oh,
It was horrible.
It happens.
It was horrible. I called my friend after and I'm walking my dog around, just like trying to get over what just happened in there. She, her healing fell apart, which is not a problem. Like usually her healing is spot on. The last trial we did, she cut the corner on the broad jump, which, is a DQ. But before that, we were looking at like a 193 out of 200, which is a decent score. So I'm used to her obedience being very sharp and her being very motivated. She didn't want to be in the ring. She was sniffing. She was leaving me. At one point, I stopped and she's supposed to sit and she's like 4 feet away from me, just looking at me like, what are we doing? What are we
She was
doing?
acting like a dog.
Yeah. It's like, oh man, you are humbling me. And it's not the first time. So yeah, it was a rough run with her in the morning. And then Rue did great in her morning novice rally run.
Can I stop you for a second?
Yeah.
Do you think if you had done the rally before the open, that might have helped open her up a little bit?
So it was Rue in the rally, not Moon Pie.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
It's not the first. Someone else asked me that question also. I do think that she needed, I don't even know. I can say she needed a warm up, but I warmed her up in the hall. I got there early and I warmed her up in the hall and she was
just having an off day.
Yeah. She was just like, we got in the ring and she was like, oh, you're nervous. This is weird. I'm going to ignore you. And it was just an off day in a way that she's normally very reliable in the ring. So I was surprised. But afternoon I almost didn't put her in the afternoon because I was so discouraged and I was like, I don't want to just go in there and practice more bad habits or bad trial vibes or anything like that. So I almost pulled her, but I was like, whatever, I'll use it as a training. Like I'll talk to her. I don't care if I point out, we'll just go in there and we'll have fun and we'll get something out of the day. And she went in there and killed it. Like not only did she qualify, she scored a 191 and a half, and was the only one in our class to qualify.
Hey,
so
admirable.
I'm like, you know what? There we go. So we have 2 legs towards an open obedience title. You need 3. Which means we have more competition in our future. And then Rue did walk away with her novice rally title, which is very exciting. Not only that, this is the first time I've competed in novice B as opposed to novice A. Is way more competitive than I thought it would be, which is cool. It's cool to see. Moon, you're not saying hi. So Rue got first place in her class, but there were like 4 of us that scored a 100. So we got high score and fastest run.
Good.
Which was awesome.
Yeah, and the A versus B. So if you're in A, it means that the handler has not competed successfully with another dog.
Exactly.
So what happens is when you're in the B group, the handlers know what's going on.
Oh, yeah.
They tend to be very competitive.
Yeah.
And it just brings a whole other vibe to the game because rally, I feel like with the competition obedience, people are just trying to pass, because it's so challenging, especially in the open and the utility. And, you'll see dogs that, they'll do 20 times before they get their title because it's so nuanced and there's so many things that can disqualify you immediately. Whereas with rally, the pass rate is much higher, but the competition piece is way more intense.
Yeah, there's a whole different element to it because not only are you trying to qualify, you want to try and go for a first place. It was refreshing, right? Because I'm looking at novice rally, which I've done. Rue's my 3rd rally dog. So my Shiba went all the way through excellent. So he's got all his titles through excellent. She's got an RN. And I was kind of like, novice rally, boring. Like, let's just get it done. And then I realized that element of it. I was like, oh, this is really exciting. Yeah, this is like, not only are we qualifying, I actually have to put work in to make sure I'm better than you, which I wasn't necessarily used to in the past rally competition. So it was super fun.
You would call yourself a competitive person?
Yes. It's a problem sometimes. And when I know I'm wrong, I usually just dig in and I'm like, no, I'm absolutely right. Absolutely right now. It was a fun trial. It was a local trial, so there were a lot of familiar faces there. And I was also really proud of 2 people from the Right Paw. My trainer, Deb Cameron, she adopted a dog 8 months ago and just debuted him in rally. She's never competed before, ever. So
What
this
kind of
was
dog?
Just like he looks like a scruffy pit bull.
Cool.
He's like super cute. She does GRC stuff with him too. He's a really cool dog. And she saw a rally and she was like, I want to give that a try. I had like a run through at an event and she brought him and he looked amazing. I was like, you should enter a trial. So she enters. She's never competed before and she's first in her class, which
Lovely.
is she walked away with the first place.
She's hooked.
She's got 2 legs towards a title. And then Jess Gavin, who did my Train the Trainer program last year, she debuted her dog and also walked away with 2 legs in rally. So it was just fun to like have a group of us there who train together, competing together.
Yeah, you have some students, and
yeah, it
that's a great thing.
Yeah. So now they're like, okay, when's the next?
It's also nice because you are the next generation
Absolutely.
of AKC
Absolutely
people. Not to say anything bad about older people, but you walk into those trials and you're wondering what the heck is going to happen in 10 years because a majority of the people competing and judging are aging.
Absolutely.
You know, and it's nice to see and when I say younger, I mean 30s, 40s.
Yeah.
I'm not talking about like 19-year-old kids.
Yep.
So I think it's great that people like yourself are taking students on, showing up to the trials, doing really well also. Yeah. And it's great. I know, Laurie, we have a couple of people that are into like doing therapy dog stuff, doing AKC stuff, and we're really excited because you know, I wonder about the future of the sport a little bit.
I have wondered that for a while now, and I've also wondered like what's my part in that, right? Like what I love dog sport and I want to see it continue and I want to see it be a fun environment for new competitors, which it isn't always. Like it can be intimidating, off-putting depending on who you're dealing with. But I do wonder like what is my piece going to be in the future of this? Because I like competing. I like supporting people. I like helping them get to competition, even if I'm not their trainer, even if it's like, hey, let's talk about how you're going to mentally prepare for your first trial, even though I've never met your dog or whatever before. So yeah, we need more 20, 30, 40-year-olds out there competing.
Absolutely.
And judging and stewarding and volunteering and all the other stuff.
Yeah, and I think sometimes when I talk with people that are in the dog training world, I get a little discouraged because there isn't a huge value put on those 3 letters, AKC. People tend to look at it as like a government and you know, we don't trust the government. You know, we don't want to talk about it. We don't want and I get that, but it's something. It's something for us to work towards, and the level at which you have to work with your dog is high.
Absolutely.
And even if you think that the skills are not the most important or, you know, not necessary or whatever your philosophy may be, anybody that goes into the ring has to put some time in, and you have to respect the fact that they have trained their dog to do these things, and they have the type of relationship where they can go into that ring with absolutely no motivation whatsoever. You know, and I mean, there's motivation, but it's not like you can bring food and toys and stuff like that into the ring. And it's not like a protection sport where there's all this excitement for the dog. I mean, the dog really has to enjoy doing the stuff with you.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think it's a great metric. So if you can do it with your dog, check it out.
Yeah, and I'd love to see more trainers competing. Like it's nice to see the ones who are there. It's funny, there seems to be like this, there's always these shifts in the industry, right? From like, we see it in like all positive versus balance going back and forth all the time. And I think we see it with the importance in competition. So like my mentors, they're in their 50s and 60s. Competing was very important when they were young dog trainers, right? Like getting out there, putting titles on your dog, that was a thing you did to prove you knew what you were doing. And then I want to say my generation, like 20, 30-year-old dog trainers, they're kind of like, titles don't matter. They're not important. And I'm like, maybe not for, you know, a pet dog owner who's not interested in competing. But for professionals, I absolutely think some sort of standard to train to is important. And there are plenty of options. It doesn't have to be AKC, right? That's why I started GRC. I wanted my clients to have access to something. If they wanted to go that path, I wanted other professionals to have access to something, but training to a standard and being tested objectively, it's going to show you where your holes are in your training. And that's very important.
What a great point.
I learned something very valuable and luckily I have video of my last one, like minor things that I'm like, oh, I did not realize that I was creating a problem for myself there. I'm going to go fix that now. And then I look for that with my clients, even if it's not competition related, it's something completely different. Right.
Yeah. It teaches you something about the way you're handling the dog, and you can look at things a little bit more objectively.
Mm-hmm.
I agree with you with what you're saying. And I think it also helps overcome anxiety for the trainer, because you need to put yourself in a very difficult situation where there's a high probability that you're going to fail. And when you're taking somebody's money for training, I want to be able to say, I have tried multiple things in a pressure cooker to get, I have worked in this way to get to where I feel comfortable teaching another person how to do this. And I'm challenging myself on a continual basis, and I'm continuing to learn and being in a situation where I'm really uncomfortable, because competition is uncomfortable. And like you said, it will show you your holes. So for me, I think it's a good metric, and you don't have to be good at it. I think that's the other thing too. Like, I'm terrible at competing with Ruben because he's terrible at it. So like, we have a rally novice title, and that's like as far as I'm going to go with him, because
that's fine. That's something though,
yeah.
right?
Like, his level of anxiety when we get into the ring is, well, the whole thing is just too much for him.
Oh yeah.
Because it's a lot, but we do disc, and just got a disc dog title. I'm stoked. And I feel comfortable helping people motivate their dog and play disc with their dog. And I wouldn't have that if I didn't get my butt to those competitions all the time. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. My first dog was a Shiba. So he's going to be 9 next weekend. And he was my try everything dog. And he had pretty severe behavior problems when I brought him home, like as far as fear and aggression, and
that's a tough breed,
being a Shiba on top of it all. But I realized very quickly that he wasn't going to be an obedience dog, because the amount of work that I would have had to put into having him stand still while a stranger touches him, he was already environmentally not stable. And I was like, I don't want you to associate competition with being touched by a stranger. But he loved rally.
Point. Yeah.
He thrived in rally. And in fact, at 9 years old, he's had his excellent title for a while. And part of me is like, do I put you back in rally? Because it's the one thing you loved. We did agility for a long time because I loved it. He did not love it. He did it because I asked him to. And our last competition was 2019. So he's got his standard jumpers and standard whatever title. I don't know a lot about agility.
I don't know a ton about agility either.
He's got his like entry level titles, and he's got legs towards his other ones. But he started getting weird in the trial environment, just like a place where we trained and trialed all the time. It was a familiar place. He was like looking for things to be afraid of. And I was like,
not worth it.
We're done with this.
Well, good on you. It's hard to walk away.
It is hard to walk away. If you've ever done agility, it's addicting.
I see people that do it, and I'm like, I want no part of that.
Yeah,
because I don't have time.
Yeah, well, I don't have an appropriate dog for it right now, but I have an agility. I have a space for an agility field out back, and I have a lot of the equipment. And I'm like lucky I don't have a dog that's appropriate for it right now, because it's very time consuming and it's very fun. It's very addicting, and I'd just be doing it all the time. Maybe my next dog will be another agility dog.
Yeah, why not? I know I love doing the agility games for disc, because we do have the tunnel and the jumps.
Yeah.
So I set those up, and Ruben loves it.
You can do so much with 2 jumps in a tunnel. Have you ever done any like One Mind stuff?
No.
One Mind Dogs is like an online training program.
Oh.
And they've just got a bunch of foundational skills videos, basically. Super fun. You can do, whenever I have a client who's like, I want to train in agility, I'm like, get 2 jumps in a tunnel and subscribe to One Mind Dogs. There's so much you can do with that. And then if you decide you really love it, then go take a class somewhere and your instructor will love you.
Yeah, totally. The disc games are great because you just need jumps in a tunnel and you can have at it and practice for the disc games. So I feel like that's a little bridge for us. Ruben leaks a lot of drive, so it would be interesting to see him actually do agility. He would be barking the entire
I've seen
time.
That.
I'm like, oh my word.
My instructor who like travels the world competing with her miniature poodles, which is amazing to watch. They bark the entire course. And she's killing it.
Yeah. Hey, if they can do it, that's I don't try to make him stop. I mean, it is what it is.
Whatever.
He's having fun. Okay. GRC. So you mentioned GRC. I think it's super interesting that you do both AKC and GRC because they are so different.
Yes. And
I know that for the GRC stuff and the Right Paw, so the Right Paw is the obedience school that you run here in Princeton. Can you talk a little bit about I know we talked a couple weeks ago with Jamie about GRC and she did a wonderful job describing what it is. Mm-hmm. As far as your training with your dogs and the mentality going into the training, how are the two different and similar? Like, how do you juxtapose those two? Because they're very, very different types of trial environments.
They're very different. So they're very different. The obedience especially is very different. And I will say that I have some of the obedience in GRC prepared me a little bit for rally with Rue. I found GRC very difficult, mostly because of the gray area. There's a lot of gray area on the test where you're not allowed to tell your dog what's acceptable without losing points. And I find that can be very nerve-wracking for certain dogs. Like there are
looking for directions.
That are looking for direction. Like, tell me what to do and I will do it. So that was probably my biggest struggle with passing SR was that piece. Because what people don't realize about SR is it's partially an obedience test.
It's a
temperament test.
Habituation of it's very weird.
It's a temperament test, right? At the end of the day, it's a temperament test. It is if this dog makes it to drive sports and falls off the spring pole, is he going to kill someone? Right?
Yes.
That's what they want to know, which is fair.
Okay.
But it's like nowhere in my life am I going to just set my dog loose for 2 minutes and give them no feedback.
Right.
Because I know my dogs and they can't handle, they can't handle a little bit of, that's a bad idea. Hey, don't do that.
Yeah, they need some direction.
Right? In novel situations, right? In my everyday situations that, they don't need any direction because they live it, right? But novel situations, we're in a new room surrounded by a bunch of people, they're going to need some direction.
Yeah.
So I would say that's probably the biggest difference. And I look at SR as more of a CGC style thing. And then you get into the drive sports, which are more your actual competition obedience stuff. What I love about the drive sports, especially spring pole, because spring pole is that's what I enjoy doing the most. And my young dog Rue really likes it. Spring pole gives you a way to practice your obedience in an excitement level that can match an obedience trial, right? So we deal with that all the time, right? Like my dog looks great in healing and training, even at run-throughs, but I get to a trial and it all falls apart because the excitement level is so much higher.
I know this feeling very well.
Yeah. So what you want to do and that's part of my broad jump issue with her is she stresses up in a trial environment in a good way. Her obedience is very sharp, but because she's so on, she was cutting the broad jump corner, which is a disqualification, which is bad. So my struggle was it was also a training error, right? I taught it really poorly because I didn't know what I was doing. But how do I replicate the excitement of a trial in my backyard where I'm practicing? And with a spring pull, you can do that easy, right? Your dog loves spring pull. That's it. You practice your obedience around the spring pull and make sure it's sharp. So I love that I have that for Rue, but she likes the spring pull, but it's not her favorite thing in the world. And honestly, this is a lot of what I got from doing Ivan's course was, if you're struggling, but you've got a foundation and you're struggling with excitement in general, get them as pumped as possible about something and then ask for it, right? So for her, she loves her chuck it ball. Like she's got a problem, right? Like an obsession. Yeah. And I never use the chuck it ball for training because it's awkward. It's this big handle that I can't fit in my pocket. And it's my lazy exercise, right? Like I don't have time to exercise you, so I'm going to do chuck it for 10 minutes versus when we're training, we're using a different toy. And then I realized when I had her chuck it out that her listening skills are horrible when the chuck it's out because she's so focused on getting the ball, especially if I throw it and have her search for it because she likes to search too. So that's how I recreate trial excitement now is your chuck it ball is out. You know it. You know you're going to get to search for it. Let's work through this problem we're having. And it was successful on Friday.
That's great. That's great.
So we'll see. Right?
Yeah, that's awesome. So can you talk a little bit about taking Ivan's course? I know that, his course has a really great reputation in the dog training world and is a big time commitment and money commitment.
Yeah.
So I think that those two things are definitely barriers to entry for people. And, I was super excited for you that you were able to do that because I was like, I didn't even know you, but I saw the work that you do.
Yeah.
And you just have such a great reputation in the local community for being an excellent dog trainer. It seemed like a great extension of your skill set. So what was the course like for you in terms of, you don't have to talk about specifics of how it influences your training, but I guess as much as you're willing to share about going through that process, if you recommend it to people, if you so, what types of people, and just some general feedback.
I'm happy to talk about anything and everything about the course. I took it in, oh my God, what year are we in? I took it in 2021, right? Because I started it last summer and finished it this past summer.
So when you say start, what is the start of it?
The start is the online portion. So there's like a 3-month online portion where you're going through various modules and then you have live discussions and then it's supposed to end with a training weekend in Florida. So she's gonna snort now.
It's okay.
So I did the online portion and for whatever reason I couldn't go to Florida with my class. So I had to skip that and the plan was I'll just do the online portion one more time and then go to the training weekend for that part. Yeah, so that all started last July 2021. March 2022 is when I went down to Florida and passed the practical, which is like it's a 3-day in-person seminar, basically, where we're reviewing all the broader concepts of the course. And then you have basically a written test. It's like a little bit of written, a little bit of watch video and respond, a little bit of multiple choice. And what he's looking for is not that you know all these fancy new training techniques. It's that you understand broader concepts like proper use of rewards and punishment. What are the most important things when you're first starting with the dog, that sort of thing. I found it very frustrating when I first started. I didn't know anybody in the course, and there was a lot of fangirling over Ivan, which I've known about Ivan for a long time, but I'm not into bite sports. I'm not into that world. He had been up in Mass a few years ago, and I was like, that'd be cool to go if I could, but I wasn't like a hardcore Ivan fan. So it was hard for me it was hard to get good information out of our virtual talks because there seemed to be a lot of like, oh, Ivan, you're so great.
Right.
Which, like, sure, he is. But, like, I have questions about this and I need someone to answer it. And then the second time I went through it with people I knew who were, they asked good questions. They were good study buddies. Be careful if you do go through the course, be very careful who you pick to study with you, because there are a lot of folks that just kind of went off in weird rabbit holes about stuff that wasn't important. And I see that happen a lot. People get sucked into these study groups that are just, they're doing more harm than good. So if you can go through it with people it's much more enjoyable for the virtual portion. And then the in-person, 3-day in-person was amazing. Like that was when I was like, okay, this is why I paid all this money to do this. Like, not that I didn't get anything from the virtual, but the in-person, it just made everything click the way it was supposed to. And I've been, how long have I been training dogs? I started in 2008, right? So, and this was over 10 years into my career that I did this course, and I've changed a lot along the ways. Like back at my days at the service dog organization, I trained much different than that. But even, just 2 years ago, what I was doing 2 years ago, it's so much different now. And so much faster in some ways, like so much faster in some ways. And people think that I do like play-based training. And I'm like, not really. Like I try to, but I teach a lot of group classes here. And, we've got a group of like a bunch of not super motivated dogs and not super motivated owners. You do your best. And sometimes you see this little spark of, oh, wow, this is really fun. Maybe I can do this tug game or this retrieve game. But you learn to read the room really quick when you're teaching to the masses. And some of my classes, every single dog is in here playing with their person and super into it. And we can choose that path for training. And other classes, we don't. We do a lot of food and the owners are still happy.
Hey, amen.
Right?
I feel the same way. I was so inspired when I went to the seminar last year with Jay Jack and Larry Crone, and I've always done play-based training with my dogs because, well, in competition, that's all Ruben likes to do. Mm-hmm. So there you go.
Yeah.
And when I got into dog training, the dog that I was having trouble with was a pit by the look of it. And the very first lesson I ever had with Laurie was like, this is a tug toy. Here's how you play with this dog. And I was like, okay. So it's always been at the backbone of how I want to interact with the dogs.
Absolutely.
But that being said, holy hell is it difficult to try to teach an owner how to play with their dog.
Yes, absolutely.
I have found it to be probably the most discouraging thing about working with clients.
So
is like trying to bridge that gap. And recently I've been like, maybe I'm not going to bother unless I see somebody that is already moving in that direction. Mm-hmm. It definitely is difficult because I see a lot of dogs and I'm like, wow, they would be really good at XYZ. Like they would be really fulfilled if you just do this. But
then you remember who the client is.
It's really hard.
Yeah.
And it's extremely hard. And that's not saying anything bad about the client.
No, that's our job, right? Our job as dog trainers is to figure out a training plan that's going to work for both parties. So would I love it if every client left here with a solid foundation in play and could use that to teach? Yes. I'd say maybe I get 50-50, right? Of my group classes, right? Because privates are a whole different ballgame. But for my group classes, for anyone looking to like add play into their group classes, don't wait until the dogs are playing before you teach them anything. Like the way I've found works is I just come in and let the dogs be monsters for the first 10 minutes. Like, let's just kind of see what sort of play they'll offer. And if they don't offer anything, then for the rest of the class, we just use food. If they're interested enough in the toy, then great, we can use the toy. And I do that every class. And I've had dogs who come in And their owners are like, oh, he's never played with a toy. And by class 4, the dog's like, well, I can't bark and lunge at that dog, but this fluffy tug looks fun. So maybe I'll do this instead. They have it's not play-based training, but they at least have an outlet for their dogs now, which if I send you home with an outlet for your pent up, frustrated 6-month-old pitty mix, woohoo. Like, I'm happy with that. And then if you like it enough that you want more, you'll be back. Because I can always reel the play in once I've started it. Right. So not too many rules. And honestly, I use it just to change the affect in the room sometimes.
So I come in stale and stinky.
Yeah. Or you can tell, like, maybe a dog was having a bad day or had a bad experience, or, something weird happened in class. I go, you know what? Everyone take 5 minutes. Just play with your dogs for 5 minutes. I don't care what you do. Just like, let's change the affect in the room, and then we'll go back to whatever we were just doing. Or I start class like that, right? It happened last week. We had like 3 straight days of rain. And then my Wednesday night classes came in amped because they had, their people had been working all day, had been raining all day. We had a bunch of young dogs with no exercise, and it was supposed to be a graduation class. But I'm like, I've got a 6-month-old lab who hasn't had exercise in 3 days. I'm not going to make him downstay for 2 minutes. Like, let's get some of that out, and then we can move on to the obedience. So you got to be flexible with it.
So when you do your group classes, you do them inside, outside, both?
I'll do both depending on the weather. I love to get outside. This time of year, my classes don't start till 5.
Oh, so you're inside.
So it's dark.
Yeah.
But yeah, as much as we can, we will get outside. So our beginner obedience class is limited to 4 dogs.
Awesome.
So we keep it super small. And then our puppy and all our other classes are 6 dogs max. So when I bought the place in 2020, there were 8 dogs in every class. And you see the size of this room.
It's too small.
It was way too cramped.
Yeah.
And you couldn't do anything fun.
It's not too small. This is a great room.
Oh, it is too small.
But
it is too small. I wish it was twice this size. I looked at making it bigger, and I just don't have the money.
Yeah.
Maybe someday when I'm like a rich and famous dog trainer. But for now,
I think it's great. And I think anytime you can get outside, it's so much better, because that's where all the action's happening anyway, and where people really need the help.
Yeah. And we have a big field out back that we can train in. And then I have the previous owner had horses, so there's a really nice riding ring out back. It's nice and flat, and then my wall climb is out back too.
Excellent.
So there's plenty of space to do stuff, plenty of space to do leash walking outside.
Excellent. Yeah, it's a good point that you made too about having a young dog if they have pent up energy.
Yeah.
We do see a lot of pit mixes coming through our training program because in rescue they tend to be plentiful.
Yeah.
And I almost wish there was just some sort of agreement that a new owner could sign that said, I will try to play with my dog, because it can really be so therapeutic for that breed in particular.
Yeah.
If people knew going into the adoption that it would be a useful thing to be able to do. If I've learned anything or would have that advice to give people, because I do think people want to extend open arms and a big heart to the breed because there's so many of them in rescue, but they're not all couch potatoes.
Yeah. People need to get comfortable with tug. Right. I can't tell you how many clients, rescues, other dog trainers, other dog professionals who still believe that playing tug with your dog will make them aggressive. Like, I had multiple people say that to me last week in various lessons. I'm like, nope, you're going to be fine as long as you listen to me.
Right.
As long as you listen
to
me.
There's a caveat.
Yeah, you're going to be fine. Absolutely. Can teaching your dog to bite things without abandon cause issues? Absolutely. This is why we're playing a game with rules, right? Don't just like let your dog grab onto your sweatshirt and do whatever they want.
Yeah, or then try to like rip it out of their mouth.
Oh,
and it's like no fun whatsoever for anybody. And then you're causing all of these possession issues that aren't really great ones.
It's crazy. I had this super cool dog I worked with that they hired me for some resource guarding issues. And I came in and I was like, all right, well, show me what you're seeing. And it was mostly like the dog would grab like pieces of cardboard or something and wouldn't want to give it back and would like growl at them and snap at them. So I'm like, all right, show me, he's got something in his mouth. What would you normally do to take it? The guy picks the dog up like this right in his face and is like trying to take this thing as the dog's growling. And I'm like, is this normal? And he's like, oh yeah, this is normal. I was like, okay.
Put the dog down.
You're going to be so happy when I'm done with you. And it was super cool dog. Like possessiveness is a really fun trait to work with if you know what you're doing, right? When you don't know what you're doing, it's less fun.
Well, all of the fun things we like about our dogs when they play are possessive
Absolutely.
traits, you know?
Absolutely.
The fact that they like to go get the thing that you throw
Yeah.
or tug on the thing that you're holding. But I think people accidentally become, you know, for example, like when you're trying to steal a toy away from a dog, you're doing the same thing that you're doing when you're trying to take something they're guarding out of their mouth. And people don't realize that. But when, you know, you watch like a decoy, like just whatever, playing with a dog, trying to build them up, build their possession. And like, that's what you're doing when they have that little piece of cardboard in the corner and they're showing their teeth at you.
People play better when they're not playing. Right?
Yeah, that's
like,
true.
When
what
plays,
a good thing to say. Yeah.
Yeah. And I point that out to people though. Like what you're doing right now, when we start playing again, do that. And then when we stop playing, do something completely different. I'll help you through it. But yeah, it's hard for people.
It's really hard for people. And I totally empathize because I am not somebody that lives in my body all the time. And working with dogs has put me in a really uncomfortable mental space a lot because you have to move around.
Yeah.
And dogs communicate with each other and with us through movement. And as somebody that has always kind of been in headspace all the time, it's been an interesting journey for me to be a little bit more mobile and to think about the way that I'm moving. So I know how difficult it is for a client when I'm trying to get them to move a little bit differently or even getting them to like kneel down on the floor. Is weird.
Yeah. So that is such an important thing that you're saying. I was actually going to bring this up when we were talking about getting into trialing and feeling what that feels like. Because that's how our clients feel when they're in class with us, right?
Oh, great point.
Like get out there and
vulnerable.
Get out there and do something you've never done before and do something physical, right? Like I'll never forget, I've done yoga for a long time, right? I'll never forget my first yoga class. My first ever yoga class as an 18-year-old, I played soccer growing up and I rode horses, but I was not a sports person. I had no balance. I was not in shape. My first yoga class was one of the most awkward experiences of my life. And I will never forget how I felt that day because that is how most of my clients feel on their first beginner obedience or puppy class with me. And you've got to make sure they know that it's okay. It's okay to feel awkward. I'm going to help you. Or when people say, oh, you did that so well. I'm like, I better. You're paying me like a lot of money to do it well. So I better do it well. It's okay if you're not doing it well. That's why you're here. Right. Yeah. Remembering that feeling is important.
Yeah. And I think putting yourself in a compromised situation so that you can be reminded is really important too.
Absolutely.
Like what you said about getting yourself into a ring or, you know, a sport or something like that where you're just like, okay, I'm the beginner now.
Yeah.
And then also realizing how long it takes to get good at it too.
Yeah.
You know,
and how hard it is to be a student. Agility did that to me also.
Frisbee has done that to me this year.
Yeah.
Like I'm just starting to reap the benefits of things that I actually mentally learned a year ago.
Yeah.
So it took a year of everything working together.
I believe that.
To make it happen. And that's a long time. And when people want dog training, like sometimes they're like, how long is this going to take? That's like our favorite question in class. How long is this going to take? Because we're like, well.
Yeah. People ask me why I don't teach agility because I competed for a little bit. I trained way longer than I competed because it took us a long time to learn anything. And I'm like, first of all, I wouldn't enjoy it because it's really hard to teach people. Like you think play is hard to teach people. Teaching agility to folks whose dogs just need a class on motivation, right? Like it's really hard to teach. I've seen my instructors struggle. And I'm so not qualified to do it. Like I do think that as dog trainers, you should keep something for yourself. And agility is, like, for me, agility is the thing that I'll go learn about and I'll be the student, but I don't think I ever want to be the teacher in that space.
So along the same lines, do you feel similarly about IGP after you spent time with
GRC?
Ivan? No,
Gotcha.
Yeah,
Okay.
like doing a different protection sport, because you spent a lot of time with Malinois. I'm sure they're very impressive dogs, but you don't have one.
Yeah.
A lot of dog trainers do have them.
Yeah.
What are your feelings about, that sport after having so much exposure to, that whole brand kind of?
I mean, I don't know. I don't feel overexposed to it, I guess. I don't feel like I know all that much more about it than I did before, because I had like researched. I've always been into dog sports. I've always wanted to know at least a little bit of like what's involved in this sport. I don't really have any strong feelings one way or the other. I think if anything, I think it's a little bit more interesting in the sense that, like, how cool is it to have a sport where your reward is literally like on the field with you all the time? Like, I think that's really interesting. And maybe even an advantage in a way that I didn't think it was before. That's why I like spring pole, though, because your reward's right there.
Yep.
But yeah, I don't really have any strong feelings about it. I don't know that I want to do it. It's a big commitment.
It is.
I'm lazy.
Commitment. You're not lazy.
I mean, I started a club on my property so that all I had to do was roll out of bed and be here.
Yeah, Laurie does do a lot of travel to.
Yeah.
She's
it's a huge commitment.
Great club.
Yeah.
But it is a huge commitment.
Yeah, and I have friends who do PSA stuff, and like I've talked to them about running a club and whatnot, and they're like, "Yeah, we train like 3 times a week." I'm like,
that's a lot.
I can't do that.
Yeah.
I mean, I wouldn't do that for, if I'm going to train 3 times a week, it's going to be for like something completely different.
Yeah.
Like agility.
Yeah.
Like I would do agility 3 times a week. But
yeah, if your dog can physically handle it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that there would probably be people who would argue that doing protection 3 times a week is a lot. But
yeah, I don't think they're doing protection at every club.
Yeah.
Right. They probably rotate obedience, protection, whatever else. I think they're also trying to develop decoys up there.
Yeah, it's some pretty intense training. PSA is really interesting. Yeah. It's really fun to watch.
Did you watch the Nationals?
I didn't.
It was interesting. So it was all live, and I was actually able to watch a fair amount of it.
Check that out on YouTube.
Yeah. Yeah, it was good. Fun to watch.
That's awesome.
Not something I see myself getting involved in. Just not for me.
Yeah.
It's just fun to watch.
Yeah, PSA is definitely there's an element of like realness to the dogs that is.
But you don't see an IGP.
No, and it's like a little scary.
What I will say,
for me personally, but that's just me.
Yeah, I agree with you, especially after watching the Nationals. I've always been a bit of a obedience junkie because my first sport was rally, and I really liked the precision of obedience compared to rally. So if anything, what interests me about IGP is the precision of the obedience.
Yeah, and it's gotten so precise.
Yeah. I think that's super cool. As long as you remember like the type of dogs you're watching.
Yeah.
Like, I don't have those dogs.
Neither does Laurie. I think that's difficult with Boo Boo because he's a Rottweiler and they just look totally different.
Yeah. They move different. They react different. They're supposed to.
Yeah.
Right?
They're supposed to. Good point.
Yeah.
Good point. So no Malinois in your future?
Well, I don't know about that, but my next dog will be another Staffy for sure.
Cool.
Like it's funny. I'm actually on Instagram right now. I'm doing a little like, what breed would you want? And people are like, well, what do you want? And I'm like, well, a lot.
What do you love about the breed?
About the Staffies?
Yeah.
I love their size. So the original reason I looked at Staffies was partially due to size, because I was looking at other dogs of the same size. I was looking at miniature poodles. I was looking at border terriers. And then I had one of Amanda Stafford's in my class. I used to teach down at a place in Medway, and I had the Stafford in class. I was like, who is this super cool dog? Her name's Ruse. And which not to be confused with Rue, who's my dog. And she was with a woman who had never had a Staffy before, was pretty new to dogs, and just like at 6 months old in my pet dog obedience class had the fanciest focused heel prancing on accident. And I was like, I need to find out more about this breed. They're versatile. You can do whatever you want with them as long as they're built for it. You can do whatever you want with them, right? Like I've done agility with Moon. I've never competed, but she's done some agility training. She loved it. Anything I throw at them, they're like, this is great. I love it. So it gives me that flexibility where if I
ride
say,
or die dog type of dogs.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Ride or die. They travel well. They like going places. They're friendly. They're social. Rue is probably my most stable dog with other dogs, but she's just kind of aloof with other dogs. And they're adorable.
They're so cute.
They're so adorable.
They're so cute. Just a cute little package, you know?
Yeah, they're a really fun little dog, and they have the ability to do some really flashy stuff. And now that I'm into wall climb, they're a really easy dog to catch.
Yes, because they're not heavy coming down.
Yeah.
Can you talk a little bit about wall climb? I think that of the sports in GRC, that would probably be the one I think maybe people would know the least about.
Yeah, so wall climb, I've never competed in it, but there's also, I don't think there's been a sanctioned wall climb event in a few years, because where Jay's place is up in Maine, he moved and he doesn't currently have a wall climb set up.
Okay.
So as far as I know, I have the only regulation wall climb in the area until he figures something out. So a wall climb it's just that. It's a straight wall. The dog runs up it and grabs a toy. And what is the real competition is how high can your dog go? So my wall is 16 feet. And for GRC, you have to have a minimum 15-foot wall. And it's just marked on the side.
So do you just use like vinyl siding or something like that to build it?
Yeah, I have it's wood, and then I have yoga mats, and then these like thick car pads. It actually, one of my club members' dogs ripped the pad, which I'm not surprised. It was I was expecting that to happen, so I have just another material to put on it. So it's padded, and then it's got a toy on it attached to a magnet, so the dog runs up and grabs the toy, and then you're supposed to catch them. And part of the sport is
You're
that
catching them on the way down.
you have to catch them on the way down, and they cannot drop the toy until the judge tells you to out them.
Oh, okay.
So what you see with some dogs is they struggle with, once your hands are on them, they spit the toy out.
Yep.
So, so I built the wall for Rue at the beginning of the year when she was hurt. So I did a little bit of wall climb with her in 2020 and then just didn't have access to one. So now that she's better, I've started putting her on the wall, and she's hit 6 feet, which for a tiny little dog is
How
nice.
tall is she?
Standing height, she's 32 inches.
Okay.
So that is, if you stand her up on her back legs with her head in the air, she's 32 inches.
So she's short.
Yeah, she's about, she's her size. So, so
6 feet is tall.
6 feet is tall.
6 feet is the size of most people's fencing.
Yeah. My fencing is
People
not
are
6
probably
feet.
listening to us like these crazy people teaching their dogs how to jump over fences.
We have a club member who, her dog's super cool, but she's like, yeah, no, we don't need to teach her to climb things.
Yeah.
Smart.
Reasonable.
Yeah, it's reasonable. So yeah, it's a lot of fun. I think Rue could be competitive in it. So that and spring pole would probably be her sports.
Cool.
For GRC, yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, I think that's a good place to wrap up because we've been at an hour.
Cool.
And I just really appreciate you being so open and honest and telling us about your experiences and your school and everything. Can you just give a shout out to your school and the club for GRC so that people know where to find you? Yeah,
so we are the Right Paw Obedience School in Princeton, Massachusetts. We do group classes for puppy class, basic obedience, advanced obedience. We do some rally classes. We do scent work classes. We do therapy dog training. We do CGC, all that stuff.
All the good stuff.
We also do behavior modification, so private lessons for behavior modification, and we do on-the-road training. So my business before the Right Paw was actually completely on the road. So I traveling to clients' homes and helping them in their home is near and dear to my heart. and it's something that I try to offer to as many people as we can. So on the road stuff is fun. And then club is Bay State GRC Club. So we started in 2020. It's a awesome group of, I think almost everyone's a professional trainer in it or someone's client that they brought along. Really cool group. Accomplished group also. So we have a fair amount of dogs that have passed their SR1 and are either working towards an SR2 or have a leg already and have points towards drive sports. It's a cool group to be involved in. And it is very full, so we're not actually accepting new members right now.
But hey, that's great. Maybe somebody will branch off and
yeah,
exactly. They have a yard or something like that.
Yeah, and I mean, like anyone interested in the sport, if you're interested in getting involved, definitely one of the things the sport really needs is more judges, right? Because there's like 2 or 3 judges in the country, which is
not enough.
It limits, especially with Jay's schedule. He's a busy guy. He's traveling most weekends. And there are 2 local judges here, but we're looking like more judges means more events. More events means more people wanting to train, more clubs being formed. That's what I would love to see is more judges. And I know Jamie is working towards.
Yeah, on her way.
Yeah, which I'm very excited about because honestly, I would offer regular SR testing here. I would offer like monthly SR testing. I would host it and bring a judge in and just open it up to whoever, because that's like we want to get people through that so they can get into the drive sports so that we have people to compete against, because that's when the drive sports are fun, is when you've got 10 other dogs you're competing against.
Totally.
That's when it gets real. So
well, you heard it here, folks. Yeah. If you're interested in GRC, get yourself judging.
Yeah. Get to be a judge, learn about the sport, get involved.
Yeah. I'm halfway talking to myself, but it's not enough hours in a day for me right now, but who knows?
You will never see me be a judge because I don't think I'd be good at it, right? Judging is hard, and I think I'd be horrible at it.
It's hard to be objective, especially if you know the people that are competing. That can be really tricky.
Yeah, I'm my therapy dog class is testing next week, and I'm bringing in a tester, and I'm like, I don't even want to watch.
Good for you.
Like, I don't even want to watch. I'm so nervous.
Yeah, but I think that's good. Especially if you have a close relationship with the people that are trialing, and something happens, and you feel bad, and then it can cause problems. So I think that's a wise choice.
Yep, I'll be here so I can have all the firsthand knowledge, whatever happens.
Cool.
So thank you so much.
Thanks for having me, Jen. This was awesome.
Yeah.
FitPet Boston Talks. Check us out on social media. And if you are listening to the podcast, please like and subscribe on whatever platform you're listening. It helps us reach more people. And we will see you next time.